Okay, so Rick, the real question is Trump on his way out? You guys talk about it a lot on Lincoln Project, on your Twitter, on all of your social media. Yeah. Is the guy finally out?
I still don't think he's out, Michael. I still think, you've seen it more than almost anybody. The guy's always got another trick up his sleeve. And a lot of Republicans in DC would like him to be out and like him to be done. But a lot of Republicans in the base are still very much on board with Donald Trump. And it's going to be, if he starts to show the kind of ability to command that base for the 24 primary that he showed in 2016 and 2020, you can't count him out yet. We'd like him to be counted out, but I've got too much scar tissue now to say, oh, it's all done, it's over.
Interesting. Because, look, I think it's a fair assessment to say that Trump's popularity is waning.
For sure.
I saw in a recent poll, as an example, if in fact that there was going to be a Republican nomination today, Ron DeSantis beats him out. We're also seeing more and more individuals in the various midterm election states pulling away from Trump. Not Trumpism, but from Trump himself.
Right.
And so my belief, and you're right, because I probably know him better than anyone, my belief is that everything that he's doing now, this bullshit narrative about his popularity and, he's going to be now making potentially an announcement. That way he doesn't get himself in trouble for opening up a exploratory committee and so on. It's all about the money. He realizes that the guy fucked over his own people for 250 million big ones. 250 million. So why would he stop? It's 4 times what he was earning at The Apprentice. And doing less work. I mean, I shouldn't say less work. He's doing a lot of work. Interestingly enough, I heard someone say this the other day, and I think it's worth repeating. Trump works very hard to accomplish nothing. Right? It's a great line.
Right.
But I believe that he's on his way out. I believe that he will still maintain that stronghold over that 24%, give or take, of these MAGA fools that are following him. But I do really believe Trump is on his way out.
Michael, here's the thing. He may not even have the majority of the party anymore. Although I think but he's got enough to win a presidential sweep of primaries. You only need to win 30% of the vote, 25% of the vote in these various states, and you're golden, especially because although Ron DeSantis is the hot flavor right now, I promise you Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton, all these other assholes are out there. They're picking out curtains in the White House in their head already. They're like deciding, how to redecorate. They've already decided they're all going to, Nikki Haley, Kristi Noem, all these people. So if you end up dividing the vote up over 5, 6, 7 other candidates and Trump sweeps up 25%, he's golden. And I do think you're right. I mean, this does come down to the money. Best fundraising, in the world, except for Trump, is Ron DeSantis right now. Trump has still got 250 plus in the bank from all of the fundraising he's been doing since the Save the Steel scandal. He's grinding. He's got the peerless email list for Republican donors. And so really, I think the thing that may put him out worse in some ways is not the money, because he likes to make the money. He still wants to raise this money. I think in some ways it's like this slow moving divorce from the rest of the party. The ones that were scared of him, it used to be 100% of Republicans would never say a word about it. But now you've got Doug Ducey in Arizona. You've got Raffensperger and Kemp in Georgia. You're increasingly seeing some distance. And look, these Republicans are not stupid. They know to win their primaries, they have to play the whole game still. But, look at, there was a before and after of Dr. Oz's website in Pennsylvania. Before it was Trump on the front page, Trump this, Trump that, MAGA this, MAGA that. And now it's like Oz for Pennsylvania. Nothing about Trump, nothing about MAGA. So this idea that base is persistent, they are persistent. And enough of them are still with him. But look, I think there's a part of him that's also, Trump has managed to snake his way out of every legal and personal obligation practically he's ever made. And I do think we're seeing some fracturing around the edges of that, and there's some diminishment of his ability to keep that omerta over his staff and everything else.
Yeah, well, look, you're not wrong about that. What I do find disconcerting to the Democratic Party is the fact that Trump, who, as I stated before, is the busiest guy accomplishing nothing, his favorability ratings are better than Biden's. And you and I talk about this all the time on this podcast and just privately. When we say that the Democrats, that we as a group have terrible messaging. But one of the nice things that we're finding out is, thank goodness to this January 6th hearings, thank goodness to people like, Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney and the whole group of them that are there putting in the work, from Adam Schiff to Kinzinger and so on.
Oh, yeah.
What we're finding is what was really going on inside the White House. And we were fortunate enough to have Cassidy Hutchinson almost as the narrator of all of these emails. I mean, we're talking about millions of them. Emails, text messages, voice recordings, documents that they took, handwritten notes. She was this wonderful narrator of all of the events. Right. We could have easily read them, which we did. We all thought Mark Meadows is fucking dead. He's doomed. They take a look and see what he said here, what he did there. You have these, there's this mother-daughter, Kramer, that purchased these burner phones and so on. And then you had Jennifer Lawrence, not the actress, Jennifer Lawrence and her boyfriend, Dustin, I forget his last name. That they were the ones that had the license for the Ellipse rally that was hijacked by Eric and Laura Trump and ultimately turned into a march, which it did not have the permit for. And you put all of this together, and I believe that Republicans, especially we'll call them the Republican independents, the ones that voted Republican, but they're really independent, I believe that they're watching these hearings. And like everybody else, are absolutely disgusted with the behavior of Trump and family and company. I mean, look, I loved the argument by Kushner. Hey, I wasn't involved with this. I was busy giving out pardons. He was busy collecting the cash. Right? on
great line.
pardons.
It's like, I didn't burn down the house, but I did kill the dog.
Right.
But Michael, I mean, I think the window Cassidy Hutchinson in particular opened into some of the behavior of Trump himself shocked people, like the out of control nature of it. And I think there were a lot of Americans who were like, holy shit. And I think the real number one reason that was a powerful message that got through is just how much time Fox suddenly decided to spend trying to burn down Cassidy Hutchinson.
Or how much time that Trump spent on his social media platform attempting to discredit her.
I never knew her.
By the way, I never knew his little chubby fingers can move that fast to put out that many, tweets, for lack of a better term. Because I don't know what they call
taking dictation or what, but he definitely, it rattled him. That testimony rattled him, and I think it's because it made him seem out of control mentally and personally, and it made it even more clear just how much Meadows, as the senior managerial person in the White House chain, knew, and how much he was dedicated to essentially letting Trump do what he wanted to do, legality or constitutionality aside. And and the group of lawyers around Trump at the time. It also gave us some insight into that collection of skells. But I mean, this whole thing, the hearings have been effective because we know they've been effective for two reasons. One, we see what Trump and his team are doing, and they're losing their minds. And the other reason we know they're effective is that Fox had to start covering them. They said initially, we're not going to cover this. It's just a witch hunt. Well, now they're covering it, full time, because they recognize they've got to try to control the narrative. And the narrative so far has been terrible for Trump.
Yeah, that's very true. But one of the reasons, and I know this because, again, I sat next to this orange-crusted, bloviated fool for over a decade, is because Cassidy Hutchinson, a 25-year-old,
yep,
made him look weak. And there's nothing to Donald Trump worse than making him look weak, because everything with him is about the projection of strength, including all of these rioters going in there with bats, batons, bear spray, military, paramilitary gear, all that made him, in his mind, strong. They're all waving around the Trump 2020 banner, right? And, and MAGA banners and all that. He believed that made him look strong. Truth be told, he's basically a mental midget who unfortunately has some real serious narcissistic sociopathic disorders.
That's for sure.
The fact that this young lady, articulate as can be, charming on camera, is turning around and emasculating this individual, this former president, this former $10 billion man, right? She emasculated him by basically describing him as a petulant child sitting in the back seat, having a temper tantrum, trying to grab it. I mean, that's why they have car seats, right? Donald should have been put into an adult car seat and strapped down. I mean, that's just the way I see it. But that would be a great video for you guys to put up, right? And you watch him trying to sit there, and then what you do is you feed him a burger and some ice cream. You feed him a burger and ice cream, and then he'll shut up. You give him his bottle, right, with a vanilla milkshake.
Donald Trump needs his binky.
That's for sure, right? So look, let me ask you this, Rick. Trump's star, as we were just saying, may be waning. Even the Washington Examiner is claiming that, I'm going to quote here, Trump is unfit for office. And I know you have some thoughts about rising MAGA putz Ron DeSantis, right? This fascist dictator in the making. And then you said in The Guardian that, and I'm going to quote, you've heard his people are practically picking out curtains for the White House, as you described before. He's making Trump nervous. Now, that I can tell you for sure. But nationwide, is he appealing enough to the average Republican, whoever the fuck that these people are, right, to get the nomination? I mean, for Republicans that feel, let me ask you this. For Republicans that feel burned by Trump, is he just honestly more of the same, right? Just younger and meaner. And as I've always referred to him as the Donald Trump 2.0.
Here's the thing about DeSantis. Right now, he's winning a primary basically consisting of DC political consultants and insiders. That's why he's got so much press right now, is they're all talking about Ron DeSantis. I live down here in Tallahassee, Florida, and the DC consultants that are flying down here every week, Delta might as well just set up a shuttle, because they're all flying down here to kiss his ass and say, let me work for you, great one. And a lot of the DC media types, the conservative media types, are in the same thing. They want to be rid of Trump and do something different. Now, I think that they are missing the fact that Trump basically has been very successful in picking people in the primaries this year. And they're going to end up with, we love Ron DeSantis, and Ron DeSantis will one day, once he gets in the race for real, once he goes to Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina, I think then Trump truly unleashes on him and the battle is really on. Now, one thing about Ron DeSantis, this is not, say what you will about Donald Trump. He can be personally charming. He can be incredibly entertaining. Ron DeSantis is not personally charming. He does not like people. He does not look people in the eye when he talks to them one-on-one. I've heard this from major donors who say I had a 10-minute conversation. He never looked me in the eye. He was looking at the floor, the wall, the ceiling, everywhere else but me. He has got a strange personal affect, and he's got a whiny voice. And there are a lot of weird things about this in my mind that say, you know, this guy doesn't have, he doesn't have a lot of the charisma that a presidential candidate needs at the end of the day. And well, look, charisma matters.
You know, yeah, it definitely does, Rick. But I will tell you, he is the talk of the town right now.
He's the hot flavor. GOP, he is the hot flavor, no doubt about it.
He's the GOP. He's the GOP darling right now. And you know, The Hill actually reported that, you know, and this is going to fucking piss Trump off beyond all belief, because remember, as I said at the very inception of our conversation, for Trump, this is all about the money.
Sure.
Right? Don't ever say the most dangerous place on the planet is between Donald Trump and his supporters' money. All right? That's the most dangerous place to be. And this is where he and DeSantis are going to really go head to head. All right? Yeah. And DeSantis has never fought. He thinks he's the tough guy. Oh, I know exactly what I will say to Trump. No, you don't, because Trump plays in the mud that's so deep down, dirty dumpster mud that DeSantis doesn't even know how to get there yet. Will he?
I completely agree with that.
He'll get his one or two zingers in there, but for every one or two zinger, Trump is going to say shit that's going to blow people's mind. So why do I say this? Because DeSantis is scheduled to travel supposedly to Utah.
That's right.
This week, right? Supposedly on July 18th, right?
Yep.
He's supposed to be there. Now, nobody knows who's hosting, and nobody knows who the exact donors are, but it is believed that this is the first time he's traveling out of his state to raise money, which would ostensibly benefit his 2022, re-election campaign, and, of course, raising chatter about his future political aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said before, you know, they're going to try to get the country's wealthiest Republican political donors, you know, to show up to this thing, and that's going to be the straw that breaks Trump's back, because every dollar he sees going into DeSantis's coffers, he thinks should have gone to him. And the way that he set up his PAC, 90% of it is at his complete discretion. In essence, you're giving Donald 90 cents for every dollar that you donate to him, personally.
One thing I'm trying to do is to make sure that we have a robust fight between DeSantis and Trump. I want them to batter the shit out of each other before 2024. I want it to be ugly as shit. And you know, Lincoln Project put out an ad yesterday that we're putting into Bedminster, you know, because I always know how to find him, and I always know what you know. We put it into Bedminster, run it on the Golf Channel in the club, and he's going to see it. And run it on Fox, he's going to see it. So we put out an ad yesterday that said essentially, hey, Donald, you know, Ron DeSantis has taken everything away from you now. Your followers, your money, the Fox News loves him more. And I want to churn that battle between these two guys, because I think it's important that for the Democrats to not just let either one of these guys run into the nomination in 2024. You know, the other guys are less likely to make it through all the bullshit. You know, Cruz and Hawley and they all want to be president, but you know, I want to be, 7 feet tall and 175 pounds. It's not going to happen. So,
yeah, look, again, I also don't believe that it's necessary, because your ads are some of the best I've ever seen. They're humorous, they are poignant, and they're truthful. I don't believe that you actually have to spend the money in order to run it on television and so on. I believe that the targeted use of the internet, rest assured, that's where Trump gets his information from. And it's not just what he sees on his, because he doesn't really see anything. It's all of the people that are around him. So if your ad goes viral, they're seeing it, and they are obligated. I want to say this again to you. They are obligated to bring it to them. To Donald.
So he would be
for
very
example,
angry if they didn't say, "Hey, Donald, you may not like this, but we got to show you this thing they're doing." And
Right, because somebody could ask him a question about it, and if he didn't know about it, that would then, anger him, and he would then go after Scavino or others who are his social media gurus, Jared or Brad Parscale or whoever else is fucking working for this lunatic, right?
Jason.
But that's exactly what. So if we target just the internet and social media platforms, rest assured.
We digitally target these things too. Like if you've got a cell phone on, in about a mile radius of Trump right now, our digital media will be hitting you. You'll be seeing our stuff, across a bunch of different platforms, YouTube pre-rolls, interstitial, all sorts of places. So that's really good counsel, and it's something that we've done for a while in terms of what we call the audience of one. But it's really the audience of 30, the people that are around him that are feeding him, his daily news diet, etc.
Yeah, there are people that he follows. He used to follow me on Twitter. Now that he doesn't have a Twitter account, that's out the door. However, I already know that there are certain individuals within his inner circle that follow all of my social media platforms. They want to know what it is that I say. They want to know. And if in fact that they don't, that's okay. I'm on MSNBC, CNN, making statements to the New York Times, to the Hill, to the Washington Post, whoever. And he sees all of that. Again, his day in the White House is not too dissimilar to the way it was at the Trump Organization. People cutting out and ripping out newspaper. Right. And emails and text messages and whatever anybody gives you that is about him that you think he would be concerned with, you would print it and you would put it in his inbox for him to take a look. And rest assured, Lincoln Project's ads are so impactful that he sees every single one of them. Now, that brings me to the point that, you guys believe that you have an understanding about what's going on, the key to Donald's head, so to speak, right? And I would say on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the highest, maybe you guys are around a 7.5 to an 8, right? I know how to get under Trump's skin.
Of course.
Right? But it's a totally different way than you're doing that. Now, we also just spoke about some head-to-head shootout between Trump and Ron DeSantis for the nomination, for the Republican nomination. But let me ask you this. What about Liz Cheney? Do you think that she stands any chance to get on the ticket? Or is she sort of persona non grata now amongst Republican voters?
Yeah, I worked for her dad when he was Secretary of Defense. I admire what she's been doing in this operation, on the 1-6 operation, tremendously. But the Republican Party has changed so much that the irony is that people who tried to invade the Capitol violently are seen as heroes, and she's seen as the villain. So I don't think that there's a space in a Republican Party primary where Liz Cheney could survive it. She is a center-right conservative, and unfortunately, the only people in the Republican Party of today are MAGA conservatives. The rest are either termed out or checked out or in very safe seats.
Yeah, look, I feel bad because she, to me, is exactly, if you listen to her speak at the January 6th hearings, you're like, this is like the lady with the iron knickers, right? This is Margaret Thatcher.
Margaret Thatcher.
She really is. She has that Margaret Thatcher-esque type of delivery. And while it could be mean, it's not. It's just factual. And I think as a result of Liz Cheney, as a result of Adam Kinzinger, as a result of, of all of the members of the committee, I do truly believe that this is a historical document that will ultimately be created at the end.
Absolutely.
Will it be the, end all of Donald Trump, the nail in his coffin? I personally don't think so. I think it's a problem for a lot of other people like Giuliani, like Laura Trump, Eric Trump, Kushner, Ivanka possibly, I believe Mark Meadows, Dan Scavino. I think that there's a whole slew, Jim Jordan, right, Matt Gaetz. I think there's a whole slew of people who are going to see some very serious problems as a result, because their information, what Cassidy was talking about, is all documented. Text messages, emails. When they went and they raided now Eastman, and they took his phones, and then they took the other guy's phones. They now have even more information that they're going to go through. And these communications are. It's like the Vulcan death touch to these people. And I warned them all. You may remember when I stood before the House Oversight Committee and I said to Jim Jordan, that fucking dummy that he is.
Weasel.
Right? Weasel. I said to him, I know what you're doing. It's not funny. Right? I know the playbook that you're trying to run because I wrote it. So look at what happened to me. Rest assured, what happened to me can happen to any one of you. And it's happening to virtually every one of them. Louis Gohmert, another fucking goofball, right?
Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham, all of them. Guy. All of them. And I said this, and I said it, I warned them, but then again, why take it from me? What did I lie about?
Right, what did you know except everything?
Right. And then the number of times that I talked to Donald Trump about a failed real estate project, or I didn't come clean right away and say that Donald had an affair with Stormy Daniels, to which I was directed to pay $130,000 for his benefit. Come on, that's your big lies, all right? That's the one that should keep me out of being able to testify before, let's say, the grand jury or as a witness, even in the January 6th hearings. You really want to know what's going on in his head? I'll walk you through it. And because everything that's going on in this January 6th hearing is so eerily similar to the things that I talked about when we were before the House Oversight Committee and this 5 other agencies that I ended up testifying to. But I want to ask you this, Rick, before we move on. I heard an interview with you where you talked about Democrats not having the right mindset to get elected, because unlike Republicans who want to win at all costs, we noodle around and roll over. But if you could give Democrats a strategy for November, what would it be? And how do we get the Democrats all on the same page and focused on winning? Because that's what we need to do.
This is a war over politics and personality and the character of America you want versus specific policy proposals. Let me tell you, Republicans have given the Democrats a tremendous gift. They have nominated a bunch of the weirdest, crankiest, most bizarre, off-kilter, strange motherfuckers I've ever seen in politics. This is what I call the mutant parade. Democrats have a chance to run against what those people represent, which is not policy, but it's craziness. It's Trump worship and insane conspiracy shit. That's a great weapon. You are not going to win this race by arguing with voters about climate change plans or prescription drug coverage or even abortion or gun control. Those may move things at the margins, but they're not going to give the big messy suburban voter somewhere to go. You've got to make those suburban voters say, am I with the Proud Boy, Oath Keeper weirdo, or am I with America? Am I with the people that, invaded the Capitol screaming and yelling and all the corruption and the bullshit of Trump world? Or am I with, this Democratic candidate? And you don't even have to get your people. Democrats also don't have to make their targeted voters into hard progressives. They just need to move them a little bit. Tell them it's okay to be in the middle. Don't say, all right, I know you're a soft Republican voter, but now you have to be like AOC. You don't say that to them. You move them, you nudge them. You don't try to slam them over all the way to the left. You just nudge them, especially because these key races in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, these key races are in much more moderate states. So get out of the policy ditch, fight against the weirdness, and fight against the threats to individual liberty that are coming down the pike. It's a winning strategy.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. However, we have to also add the Supreme Court to the Trump mutant team of people that are there promoting this Trump ideology, right?
Yep.
This Trumpism. You know, I personally believe, and I generally don't like to talk about my personal beliefs. I try to back everything up on this program with facts and then give my opinion on the facts, but not my personal beliefs. I do believe, though, I'm going to break my own rule, that Generation X, Y, and Z, women all throughout this country, other than the diehard MAGA morons that are out there that, you know, that only care about their religious beliefs and why it is that they will not get an abortion. And I'm all good with that. I know many women, real Christian faith followers, and I'm all for that. Listen, anybody that follows religion is good, right? That's my opinion. It's all good. But when your belief system now is designed to impose upon my belief system, that's a problem. And we now have these three individuals on the Supreme Court, along with Alito and Clarence Thomas, and we are going to see a whole slew of liberties being taken away day in and day out. And I believe that this is where Jamie Harrison, the DNC, Lincoln Project, MeidasTouch, Democracy Now!, Mea Culpa, anybody who has a real platform out there needs to be hammering this day in and day out, which is the Trump methodology, right? Continue to say it everywhere that you go. Every time you put out a message, it's the same thing. You care about your rights? Care about the Constitution? Republicans don't. And here's why. And then you go to the Roe versus Wade, the recent Roe versus Wade decision, where NPR PBS put out a Marist poll. 2/3 of this country do not support overturning Roe v. Wade. No problem. Let's make that the position for the midterm elections. Are you or are you not for Roe v. Wade? Are you or are you not for, if you're a governor, for passing some sort of mandate that would basically make the Supreme Court decision ineffective, right? Are you or are you not? If you are not, bye-bye, motherfucker. Have a nice day. All right?
I think there's this, what I call an opportunity space, frankly, because look, two American presidents defined what this country felt about abortion perfectly. George Herbert Walker Bush promoted what we call the Bush Rule. Rape, incest, and life of the mother should always be exceptions to state abortion laws. And Bill Clinton said he thinks that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. Those two things are right where America's head was at and is at. Now, if you're pro-life, and look, I come from the sort of Catholic tradition of thinking that life is sacred. Now, but I come from a political tradition that government should say the fuck out of my business. And it is not my business as a citizen or in government to tell people what medical procedures they can choose, even if I don't like them, even if I don't morally think they're great. I do understand the world. And I think there are an awful lot of people who are what I call soft pro-life, but they are anti having the government snitch on women's like fertility monitoring apps and their Google searches and their travel records to make sure they're not trying to get an abortion. I mean, that's a world, I don't think if you're a conservative, you should not want to live in that world. And I think you're right. Those people who can't make a simple declarative, I think people should be individually free to make their decisions. If they can't do that, they're not conservatives. They're Christian extremists in the best case, and they're freaking weirdos in the worst case.
Weirdos? I read an article, and I don't know if it's true or not, because I don't want to be like Fox News or Tucker Carlson or Hannity, and I don't want to be passing around misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, but I did read this article, and I don't know if it's true, that they are now training dogs to sniff women who are pregnant. A fertility dog, so to speak. And these dogs will be at airports and at train stations to ensure that the citizen of that state does not leave to go to another state using mass transit in order to get an abortion. I mean, how far is crazy going to go?
I have to tell you, I haven't seen that article, but nothing would shock me about that. I talked to a guy the other day who has some knowledge of what the Florida legislature is planning. They're planning to get the data from apps on women so they can match up their fertility and say, okay, well, you stopped having a period at this point, therefore you were pregnant after this date, and their geolocated information from their phones. So they can say, okay, we think you were pregnant. We think you were near a Planned Parenthood. And will that bill pass? Who the hell knows? But this day and age, you can't take any chances with your freedoms. And so, it's important to remember there are people in this country, and I break pro-life people into two categories. What I call the soft pro-lifers, who have a genuine, non-malicious, non-misogynistic reverence for life, and who see abortion as a terrible thing because of that. And I see the other part of it, the activist abortion folks. They are trying to turn the country's clock way, way back. They do not believe women belong in the workplace. They believe men should have more agency over their wives' decisions about their fertility and their pregnancies. And those people should scare the living shit out of folks. Because there's another group that does that too. They're called the Taliban.
Yeah. Rick, what's interesting, if you Google fertility sniffing dogs, what pops up is dogs with their amazing noses can pick up on these hormonal changes even before a pregnancy test does. And researchers have found that when a female ovulates, change in hormone levels can attract dogs. For instance, researchers realized dogs tended to sniff private areas more around ovulation. This is what that article was talking about. Can you possibly imagine, as a woman, you're standing there?
Sadly, I can imagine the kind of men who would say, "This is a great idea."
This is Gilead. This is exactly Gilead, walking around with these German shepherds and so on, and with the dog burying their nose in the woman's crotch in order to see whether or not she's ovulating, and if so, they take your name and your ID down to make sure that you're still pregnant when you come back. I don't know.
Last year,
if this doesn't scare the shit, if this doesn't scare the shit enough out of people to get out there and vote, then I don't know what will.
Right. If you're not motivated now, what the fuck do you need? In 2020, Lincoln Project, we produced an ad that we did not run because at the time we thought it was too much. It was the woman in the car with her daughter. We later gave the ad to MeidasTouch, and the Meidas guys ran with it, which is great. We thought it was too much, and we had a bunch of other ads in the stack in that last 10 days of the campaign. So we're like, here, you guys do it, run with it, go crazy. Now I look back and think, that wasn't too much. That was barely scratching the goddamn surface.
Yep.
I mean, what people want to do now, Greg Abbott, let's be real. Greg Abbott in Texas has set up a system under Senate Bill 8 in Texas where people have a financial incentive to snitch on women who try to get an abortion. I don't want to live in that world. That's not a country with free individual liberty and a constitutional basis and respect for individual rights. That's crazy town.
Yeah, that's Gilead. So let me then move on and ask you this then, Rick. Back onto the subject of the January 6th investigation. Sure. How do you think that the committee has done so far? I thought that the gamble of the surprise interview with Cassidy Hutchinson obviously really paid off. I wasn't sure where it was going to go, but I do truly believe that it paid off. I don't think that it's the nail in Trump's coffin, Michael, but I do.
Yeah, I do too, Michael. And I think, look, I had my doubts and concerns that the committee was going to pull this off. I was public about them. But I will say this, they understood that and I think this may be the other reason Trump has been so bothered by the committee. They understood you had to produce a great television show for America. You had to produce a spectacle for them to see and learn from. And I think it's been so brilliantly produced, and the messaging from Chairman Thompson and from Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and and everybody else on that committee, they have been so steady and calm and not over the top, but they've been rolling out the hotter the fact, the calmer the tone is how you should always do politics. The more exciting the information is, the more steady you should sound. That's how, I mean, when I do that in ads, the more crazy the charge is, it's like, you'll hear it's like, then he got 12 speeding tickets. And it sounds over the top. But, then he killed his wife. It's more chilling the other way around. The committee has had this, I think, powerful control over its message that has really, really gone well. And America keeps tuning in by the millions and millions every time they're on.
Right. So then let me ask you this as a follow-up. Cipollone is significant, and his name, of course, came out from Cassidy. All right.
Yep.
Next, they're going to be able to connect Trump to both the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. They have all of that documentation.
That's what it looks like.
Right. Now, with so many revelations, is it possible that the ramifications of January 6th are breaking through to these conservative voters? And further to that, how do we capitalize on this moment, fresh in the minds of voters? Let's bring them in. Let's turn around and wrap our arms around them and tell you, we cannot, as a country, our democracy cannot afford another 4 years of this guy, of this stupidity, or anybody that believes in Trumpism.
Yeah, look, I do think, well, I know for one thing, the 1-6 committee hearings and the Dobbs decision on Roe have had a meaningful impact on the generic ballot politically, and it's changed the chemistry in a lot of races around the country. Mm-hmm. And I do think there are Republicans who are the softer Republicans, the Lincoln Project voter targets that we targeted very effectively in 2020, who are watching this and just saying, "Oh, I did the right thing by saying no. I did the right thing by staying away from Trump." And I think you will find that those people are both out there, and I think they're important and will be important in the 2022 and 2024 election, because there is a part of Trump's unacceptability that, Tim Miller just wrote a great book about Republicans like giving into Trump. And a lot of them for a while were like, I'm just going to play the game. It'll be fun. I'll deal with it how I deal with it. And now a lot of those people, they understand the game is ultimately destructive, including to them. And so, Lindsey Graham is not out of the woods here on 1-6 and on this election overturning strategy. There are a lot of these people who thought that they were golden. I mean, look, Jeff Clark thought he was going to be Attorney General of the United States, and he got fucked because, Trump was basically completely careening out of all control. And so Cipollone testifying, I think, is a valuable thing, even though it's going to be just a transcript testimony. It will end up giving us more knowledge of what's going on in the White House in those critical days.
Right. Of course, because the topic that they want to discuss with him is his role in trying to prevent Trump from deploying the Justice Department, right, to illegally overturn the 2020 election.
And look, I have a personal interest in this now. And Reed Galen and Stu Stevens and I from Lincoln have a personal interest in this now, because we have learned, because of a FOIA to the Justice Department, that Mark Meadows asked Bill Barr, he gave Bill Barr a dossier on the Lincoln Project to go after us. We learned this on late Friday afternoon, and we've been working on it to get more information about it. But these guys were willing to use any government power to go after their enemies and to go after Americans who are opposed in any way. And God knows you've been to this rodeo more than anybody.
What I watched the other day as they were talking about the IRS being sicked on McCabe and Comey. Hello, you think that they didn't do that to me? I'm a guy who follow me on this, and this was in my sentencing memo, so it's not I'm making it up years after. Right. I've already done my time. I'm done, right? Other than the supervised release, which I have now put in an application to terminate the supervised release. I owe no money to anyone, to the government or anything. However, they went after me in a way that has never been seen before. I am a taxpayer for 30 years. I have never filed until 2017, when all this was happening, I've never filed a late tax return. I've never asked for an extension. I've never had an overseas business or an overseas nominee. I've never had an overseas bank account. I've never had a fake wire transfer like what Manafort did with his, what do you call it? With that jacket, that fakakta stupid jacket. All right. I never had any of these things. Yet I was given 48 hours. And the IRS, when I first found that out, I'll have my accountants go ahead and prepare, returns, proper returns, amended returns, to which I received from a woman named Andrea Griswold over at the Southern District of New York. If you try to do that, your returns will be even more scrutinized, and we will find more issues to deal with that will financially hurt you even more. Well, why is the Inspector General not looking into this? This all goes back to Bill Barr. So that fat fuck doesn't get the right to sit there smug like a fucking putz in a sofa. He does not get to sit there, turn around and say, "Oh, I call bullshit on Donald. Oh, everybody forgive me, right? Allow me to come back into public, and into polite society." He does not get that right.
No, not in the slightest. And look, I think that the abuse of power is something that Americans have not seen in a presidency at this level in a very, very long time. The sort of stuff that Bill Clinton used to do was small ball compared to all this. This is the big show. This is the real thing. And I think it is shocking that no one has yet understood the scope of these things in a way that shows the American people what was going on, like the 1-6 committee. And that's why they're so valuable. And that's why I think the final hearings will continue to be valuable, as it outlines, the desperation, the links to the Proud Boys, the abuse of power, all these things. I think they're going to wrap it up in a pretty neat bow.
Well, let's hope so. So then let me ask you this then, Rick. Last election cycle, the Lincoln Project was really active in getting folks out to keep the vote safe. What's your plan for November? Because we know that the GOP is already gearing up to steal elections from the inside. They now have people taking over election boards, and look, let's face it, voters' rights are under attack. So how do we make sure that 2020 doesn't happen again, this time successfully for the Trumps and the Trump 2.0s?
Well, we're doing our political media messaging and activism in a bunch of key swing states, and in about a dozen congressional districts below that. But we're working on governors and U.S. Senate races in places like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona. We're working on congressional races scattering across the country. We've got a list out on the website. But we've also built this thing called the Union, where we have over 75,000 volunteers now who are active in these key states, and they're getting training to go be election observers. There are 1,180 lawyers signed up at the Union who are going to be there on election day, helping to make sure we file motions if the Republicans are trying to shut down vote counts early or steal the elections. So, but it's going to require everybody to get out there and really push up against the lever, because this thing is going to be a very consequential election. If the Republicans take the House and the Senate, day one, the minute that happens, they're going to start impeaching Joe Biden, going after Hunter's laptop, all the crazy bullshit that Trump always talks about. And if they have the Senate, they will block every single thing. Joe Biden will be dead in the water. And that will be the predicate for Trump to roll in and go, I can fix it. Mm-hmm. So it's an incredibly important election. And at the state level, the secretaries of state.
Quite frankly, Rick, I can fix it. All right, everybody knows it. You know it. I know. And he's going to end up. It'll be all 2016 again.
I alone can fix
it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Continue. You were saying.
No. But yeah, I mean, look, and these Secretary of State's races are absolutely crucial in these key states. And those are crucial because in some states, they've already promised, that they'll just count the vote for Trump no matter what.
Okay.
that is a bad world to live in.
Okay, so I can't get off this thing with the IRS just yet because I've been brewing over this since I started watching it and I started reading about it, right? As I wrote into my sentencing memo that Judge Pauly just decided to ignore, prosecutors didn't give two shits. It was all about nailing Michael Cohen. Why? My belief, and which is what my lawsuit is about, Michael Cohen versus United States government, Bill Barr, Donald Trump, Michael Carvajal, BOP, DOJ, the whole bit. What is that really about? It's about the fact that Trump ran this whole scam. And that's really what it was. It was to punish people he doesn't like. Why? So that it sends a message to everybody else. Step in line or you're going to prison, right?
Yep.
Now you tweeted on this point that, and I'm going to quote, the news that James Comey and Andrew McCabe mysteriously got the worst level of IRS audit isn't surprising on one level. Authoritarians always turn the power of the state against their enemies. So do you think that these sorts of revelations turn conservatives against Trumpism, authoritarianism, whatever the hell you want to call it? But at the end of the day, it's just lawlessness.
Yeah, look, when Hitler was rising to power, German Chancellor Franz von Papen said, yeah, I don't like him, but it's either him or the communists. And the argument now is like, oh, it's either him or the communists. And it is a dangerous mental framework to live in. But I think most Republicans do live in that, where they don't care what Trump did or does. They may be privately horrified by it, but it's not going to change their publicly facing political positions, which is bad situation for the country.
It's democracy in peril. I mean,
it is.
Again, not to sit here and discuss my case. You could read it online. It's under the Petrillo sentencing memo. I've never been audited in my entire life. During the 5 years where it was a $1.39 million that Jeffrey Getzel, my former accountant, just fucking missed. It was $260,000 a year in missed tax. Every dollar went into Capital One Bank, which was located at the base of the building I lived in. I paid millions in taxes over that same period of time. How is it that Judge Pauly could even turn around and make the argument that this was a sophisticated tax evasion scheme? I gave every single bank document in a tabulated 3-ring book to my accountant. He just missed it. And then they give him some sort of an immunity to go before a grand jury and to lie about me and to testify. I'm so impressed that you were able to get your FOIA documents. Do you know, I'm trying now for 2 years to get FOIA documents. Originally, I was supposed to be given expedited
we haven't
assistance.
No, these weren't ours. These came from the 1-6 committee.
Oh, I see. I wish the 1-6 committee, I wish somebody would actually look into my case. Not because it's me, but because it shows the level of corruption of Donald Trump and his administration from the top down. That Bill Barr didn't do this without Donald Trump telling him. Adam Pakula, the lowest level. Right.
Did you ever have, or any of your minions ever have, or did any of Trump or Trump's minions ever have a conversation with you about Michael Cohen? What was it about? Tell us more. Where's the documents? Where's the emails? What happened then? I mean, these things, Washington, D.C. is desperate to let Bill Barr get cleaned up and run him through the car wash because, he's an establishment, affable kind of guy, and they think he's, worth keeping around, which I think is a fucking egregious mistake at every goddamn level.
Talk about funny stuff. So, as I told you, I was trying to get these FOIA documents. I received back a response that turns around and it says that there are no documents that fall within the purview of your request. And so I then bring on this guy named Mark Zaid, who I'm sure you've heard of. He's like the king of this. Sure, he's the best at this. And he then files an action against them. They go ahead, and we already know that certain documents exist. For example, the document by Ted Lieu, Hakeem Jeffries, by Michael Horowitz, the IG who's done nothing and completely unresponsive. But we have these documents anyway. So it can't be zero. We have like 5 or 6. So Zaid gets involved, and what happens? Now all of a sudden, how many documents do you think that they found now?
Oh, hundreds.
456,861 documents. So we went from 0 to almost 500,000.
But now what? Mother of God.
Right. And now they turn around and they state, well, because of COVID and because it's going to deal with other institutions, we're going to have to redact them, we can only get to you 500 documents per month, starting August 22nd. All right, why August 22nd? I don't know. But that would take 90 years for me to get all the documents I want. And so Zay turns around and says, look, they're going to fight us tooth and nail on the 302s, on the grand jury documents. After getting rid of the 302 documents, there's 47,000 documents. We say, fine, we want them all, and we want them all right away. Once again, they come back and say, we can only produce 500 a month starting on August 22nd. So instead, it'll take 9 years. Can you imagine? How am I ever supposed to be able to demonstrate the level of corruption?
Outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. It's absolutely corrupt. And frankly, if someone from the Biden administration is listening, you guys should step the fuck up here and push the button. This can be done instantaneously.
Mm-hmm. Ted Lieu couldn't get it done. Hakeem Jeffries couldn't get it done with letters. It took them 18 months before there was finally a response that was given. And that response came only because of my appearance and Ted Lieu's appearance on Alex Witt on MSNBC.
Sure.
Other than that, they're just sitting there. It's obscene. This government works for me. It's my tax dollars that are paid. Sure. I can't get my own documents. Listen, this is the problem when you have a corrupt president with a willing and complicit attorney general who weaponizes the Department of Justice. And my hope is that we're going to be able, whether it's through deposition, through FOIA or something, that we're going to be able to get these documents so we can show the American people the administration that was there, that corrupted our democracy, if in fact that you want to keep the democracy. So look, Rick, we have, as I always tell you, the Howard goes by quick. You and I could talk for hours.
I know, man. It's crazy.
I have one last question, right? So I have one last question for you. You've been on a truth-telling mission lately. The Meghan McCain thread has made you famous in some circles, and quite frankly...
No, that's Steve. That's not me.
Oh, well, either way, it was refreshing that someone would finally tell the truth and slay the dragon, or in this case, the McCains, right? But what's motivated Lincoln, right, to start talking about this now? Because we've certainly seen how the truth can...
That's Steve Schmidt on his own recognizance on that one. But look, we try to tell the truth at the Lincoln Project. We try to be clear about, our beliefs, about where we see the world, about what to do about the problems we're facing. And I don't think that in American politics, people always do that. And so that's why I think people find, confronting the past and confronting the facts is not always comfortable, but it's something that almost always has a meritorious outcome.
Understood. However, the truth is very hard to get out.
Sure.
And you know this because there's always going to be someone, in this case, Donald Trump and acolytes, that will say, Rick Wilson, you're a fucking liar, right? Lying Ted, right? How about convicted felon liar Cohen or, any of the other monikers that Donald...
I've been called everything from a liar to a murderer to a child molester to a Klansman to a spouse abuser. I mean, I've been called every name under the sun, the worst possible things you can be called. And to my mind, it's hard to bear, but it's also the kind of thing where when they're that crazy, that, when you're taking that much flack, you're over the target.
Yes.
And I like to be over the target.
Right. However, what we have seen? What we've seen is that Trump, because of his narcissistic sociopathic ego and all of the acolytes around him, they all fucked up, not once, but it appears now twice. The first was the documentary that Jason Greenblatt, who's former co-general counsel at the Trump org, set up, which is just a treasure trove of stupidity. But The Guardian, Hugo Lowell, just put out a story, which I know both you and I retweeted because we thought it was that funny. And I'm going to read from it for a second. Roger Stone and Stop the Steal leaders were followed by a second documentary film crew before the Capitol attack that also recorded key moments in the timeline, including rehearsal rallies and the days leading up to January 6th. I mean, they're like the gift that just keeps on giving.
Right. It's like that's like that scene from, I think it's from The Wire, where the guy goes, "Are you really taking notes on a criminal conspiracy?" What? And they were getting their egos jacked off so they could be in a documentary about the revolution they were planning. So
dangerous. Well, Rick, thank you. Let's stay in touch. Let's
keep putting out these
brother. And let's keep putting out these incredible videos. Any assistance you want from me, please.
I love
to
it.
All of my listeners, don't forget
100%.
Rick Wilson, Lincoln. We need to create the movement. And I say this on all of my podcasts, and I'm imploring people. We have to vote. We all need to join one of these movements. I tried to make Mea Culpa into the movement. I know Lincoln Project is a movement, Meidas, Democracy Now!, whatever it might be, so that we could all coordinate. And we need to do a joint group rally somewhere in D.C., maybe in front of the Supreme Court. And let's get out there, not with 10,000 people, not with 100,000. Let's bring out the millions of Americans that are as fucking sick and tired and fed up with the bullshit that the Trump administration and these Trumpists, are inflicting upon our country. And with that, Rick, I say thank you. And obviously,
thank you, sir. As always, a great pleasure.
To have you back
I'm
soon.
looking forward to seeing you again soon, brother.
You got
Thanks,
it, pal.
guys.
See you soon.